You're going to settle. Good girl. Hello, lovely people of the internet, and welcome to episode 10 of the NovelTea Knitting Podcast. We've made it to double digits, guys. Triple digits, here we come. Maybe. I hope. I am the host of this podcast. My name is Emma, and I am here to talk to you about all things knitting, crafty, basically anything cozy that takes my fancy. To new viewers, welcome to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This crafty podcast comes to you in a series of different parts. We start with finished objects, which can be either knitting or crochet, and then go into works in progress. If I have any stash enhancement, we talk about that, and then we move on to other crafts that I might be partaking in, whether that is sewing, cross-stitch, something else. We shall see what happens. To returning viewers, thank you so much for joining me again. You know what goes next. Grab your cup of tea. I have iced tea today because, again, it's summer here in Michigan and it's stiflingly hot. Mine is Serenity Now by David's Tea. This is my absolute favorite tea, just period. It is my favorite tea from David's Tea, and it is my favorite tea in general. It is an herbal tea, so it's caffeine-free, and it's just very sweet. It tastes fantastic iced. It tastes fantastic hot. It is my go-to tea. So anyway, grab that cup of tea and let's get started. So my husband and I just got back from a very relaxing vacation. I brought about 5 projects, I think, one of which was just a new skein of self-striping sock yarn, just in case I didn't want to work on the self-striping socks that I already had cast on. I brought an extra skein of yarn just in case. And do you know what? For all of that supposed time that I had to work on projects, don't have anything done. So that's it for the finished objects segment. Moving on to whips. I have 3 main whips this episode. This sock head hat that I've been working on for my husband, which is just this really lovely winter hat out of crazy yarn from Stonehenge Fibers. That's what it is. Stonehenge Fiber Mill. I am nearly done with it. I am working on the decreases for the top. Honestly, I have like 15 rows, maybe even less than that to go. I do need to switch it on to some double points because this is getting to be too small for these circular needles. I could alternatively put this on a larger needle, like a 40-inch cord, and then I would be able to do magic loop. But I've got the double points, so I might as well just grab those and use them. It's probably going to be equally as complicated and or simple as getting a new cord on this. I was a little bit surprised about how sudden the change was from one color to the next. There's absolutely no blending, which in retrospect I should have realized, but it is just very abrupt and it just goes. It just so happened that with this hat, I got the entire ribbing done in this one color, and then that is exactly when it switched to the other color. So that was very convenient. My husband, Michael, who I'm knitting this for, actually really loves the abrupt color change, so I am not worried about it at all. So this will absolutely be a finished object in the next episode. This one was a much faster knit than my previous sockhead hat, despite the fact that I didn't manage to get it finished in the last 2 weeks, because I didn't knit as much on the body. I think I only knit 35 rows for the body before I started the decreases. The decreases add another 20 rows onto the hat, and I've mentioned before, but I'll say it again, that my husband wears his hats very close to his head. So I can make this a slouchy hat, and he will not slouch it, which will just end up looking a little bit ridiculous. So I think that this will be good. It'll just like hug the crown of his head, and he can fold the brim as much as he wants, but it will not end up getting folded back all the way. Like, this is what he would do if I knit the body too long. He would just put it down onto his skull like this, and pull back the brim as far as he needed to make it comfortable. And actually, seeing that on my own head made me really love this hat. So I take it back. I do not care about the abrupt change. I guess it makes sense that it wouldn't matter because as soon as you fold it over, it looks like an abrupt change anyway, even if it had been faded in some way. So that's really cool. This is primarily what I worked on while we were on vacation. We were camping with my in-laws. We set up chairs down by the lake and sat and got the nice breeze off the lake because it was blisteringly hot this past weekend. It is nowhere near the kind of heat that the West Coast is seeing right now or was seeing last week, but it was still pretty brutal. It was about 90 degrees with just the worst humidity. So knitting by the lake was a huge joy for me. The other thing that I worked on a little bit, I think I got 1 or 2 rows in maybe, were my beautiful socks. I didn't work on them much. In general, we ended up doing stuff even though we were relaxing. For example, the rest of Michael's extended family on I think his dad's side also was camping, and so we went and spent some time with them. And I would sit down and I would start to knit and I would get 1 or 2 rows in and then I would get pulled into something. Whether that was food that they were feeding me, which I am very grateful for, or just something else. In this case, what it mostly was that Michael has one of Michael's cousins has 3 beautiful little girls. They are just the sweetest things. While I was knitting, they came over and they were kind of just standing there watching me what I was doing. And so I took out my yarn. I had both of these projects with me. So I was taking them both out and asking them what their favorite colors were. I showed them how to knit a couple of stitches. And by the end of that explanation and talking with them and playing with them a bit, it was dinner time. And then I got invited to sit at the kids' table. And who's going to say no to that? I mean, these girls were so adorable. I absolutely loved spending time with them. They were so sweet. So we played games and I ended up not getting any knitting done. But yeah, so I am very close to the heel flap and gusset that I want to do on these socks, which is kind of why I have stalled out on them a little bit. I find that even though heel flap and gusset is really easy for me and I really enjoy that heel, I always sort of lose my wind when it comes to the heel. And actually, I can't even say it's for the heel flap and gusset. Any heel besides an afterthought heel is always a stall for me. Obviously, because with an afterthought heel, you knit just a tube and then you cut in the heel, which is also a stall for me because I will knit the entire tube of the sock and then not end up finishing it because that involves putting the heel in. So heels are always my stumbling blocks when it comes to finishing socks, and it's no different with this one. Once I actually do it, of course, it is easy peasy, and I'm always like, why did I take so long to do that heel? So I'm sure that will be the case for this as well. Now, the last whip that I have to show you is my Banff cardigan, and I am actually really proud of the progress that I've gotten done on this one. I owe a lot of that progress, in fact, probably all of that progress, to a decision that I came to, which was that I hated doing the fade. I really didn't enjoy doing it. It was such a pain in the butt. It required a lot more attention to detail than what I'm used to applying when I'm knitting. I was constantly counting rows. I was constantly having to break my yarn and weave in ends and all of that. So that was stalling me out on doing my front panels because I knew that it was going to be even more frequent and more constant attention that I needed just because the front panels were smaller. So I just decided not to fade them. So I've got one front panel completely done and seamed onto the rest of the project. This is what it looks like when it's color blocked compared to when it's faded, and I definitely think that the fading looks better. It looks more interesting and it's kind of more fun, but the color blocking is what got me to finish the project. So I will take what I can get. And I also finished the other front panel. I have a ton of seaming to do now. I need to seam this panel onto the top of it, and I need to seam along the edge as well, of course, and then I have to knit the arms, which I am not going to seam on. I am absolutely just going to pick up stitches and cast on for my sleeves. I really do not think that with my touch sensitivity that I would be able to tolerate the seam up the arm. I might be able to, but it's not worth it to find out after the fact that I can't. So I did mention before that I made my front panels wider than what this called for. I just wanted a little bit extra on the front than what the pattern actually called for so that it will close a little bit more or a little bit more easily. And I mentioned previously that I would just have to decrease as I got to the top, but I did not end up doing that. I tried to do the decreasing and I found that it just looked kind of odd. I would have either had to space it out way more than I had planned on, which would have involved a lot of ripping back, or I would have had just like these really short decreases because I only increased by 6 stitches. So I would have only had like a very short decrease like right at the top, and it just looked a little bit odd. So instead, what I did when I was seaming this was that just every now and then I skipped a stitch so that I made it as even as I could. So it's a little bit bumpy in certain places where the seaming was done, but it's almost completely unnoticeable, even to me, and I know it's there. So I think by the time it blocks out, it will be completely unnoticeable. And I am just now realizing that I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that you are supposed to block your pieces separately first and then piece them together. But I didn't do that, and I don't think that it's worth it to take out the seaming that I did, so I'm not doing that either. I didn't swatch, I didn't block them before seaming, just being a really bad knitter, aren't I, guys? I also, and this is just funny to me, I lost yarn chicken while I was knitting this front panel, so you can't really tell. You can kind of tell, maybe. So there are 2 different reds in this piece. There's a red up to about there, and then a different red for the rest of it. And they look so similar that that was what solved my problem. But I ran out of this red. Well, I didn't run out of, but I came to the end of my skein, and I didn't want to open up the new skein. So I had about this much yarn left, and I had the only row I had left was my bind off row. And I couldn't bring myself to do just 1 fewer rows because then the because then the right and left panels would have been just slightly different lengths, which probably would have been fine, but it hurt my brain to imagine that that was what was going to happen. So anyway, long story long, I just grabbed some of the other color of yarn, which again, you cannot tell the difference on camera really. Oh, maybe just a little bit. So you can see here to here, there's a very slight difference between the 2 reds. But most cameras don't pick it up. And honestly, most eyes don't pick it up either. So yeah, there's lots of seaming in my future, and there is some Sleeve Island coming up as well. Oh, and actually, I ordered some yarn recently. I will not be showing you guys it in this video because I have not received it yet, but KnitPicks had a sale. They had like their big summer sale, apparently, that they do every year. And so I was able to be super, super good, and I didn't buy anything for the first couple of weeks of the sale. Didn't buy any fingering weight yarn when they had that on sale. I didn't buy any DK or sport weight yarn. But then the worsted weight yarn went on sale, and I did some serious damage to my budget with that sale. I bought a sweater's quantity, and specifically this sweater's quantity of their Brava worsted, which is just an acrylic worsted weight, so it doesn't always hold up the best when it's knit into a sweater. I have knit it into a sweater before, and it starts pilling pretty quickly. But they recently came out with some speckled Brava worsted, and I am obsessed with it. The colorways that they have on the site right now, I think well, at least the ones that are my favorite, are Cherry, Tidal, I think there's a pink one that I can't remember what it's called. And then there is just peachy. It's mostly like a cream base, and then it's got bits of orange and yellow. And it is so beautiful, and I am going to make it into this exact cardigan. I am really loving this cardigan. I am going to finish this one before I cast it on, just in case I don't really like how it feels when I actually wear it. But a sweater's quantity of yarn is a sweater's quantity of yarn, so I will absolutely be able to use it for something. But I really have enjoyed working on this, but I really, really want to make one where it's all just one color, where I am not fading, where I'm not color blocking, where I'm not having to weave in a bunch of ends. So that yarn will be one of many that I will be showing you hopefully in the next episode, assuming that it gets here by then. So the last thing in the whip segment that I usually talk about is my patchwork pullover / festival cardigan, but I don't really have any progress on that one either again this week. I don't think I had any progress on it in my last episode either. However, it does lead me very nicely into my next segment, because my next segment is stash enhancement. I might not have gotten my KnitPicks yarn yet, but that doesn't mean I don't have new yarn. So whenever Michael and I go anyplace new, whenever we go on vacation or anything like that, I always like to do a little search to see if there's any yarn shops around. And while we were at Burt Lake, which is where we were camping, while we were at Burt Lake, it started raining one day, and I really didn't want to be in our tent while it was raining, so we took a little drive. We decided to go visit Petoskey. So on our way to Petoskey from Indian River, which is where the Burt Lake campground is, we went through a Lanson where there is this cute little yarn shop called the Dutch Oven Yarn Shop. Here are the details. I grabbed a business card on my way out, but I will also, of course, link the shop in the description down below. If you are up in northern Michigan for any reason, you should absolutely check out the shop. But before I talk about the shop itself, I wanted to show you guys the yarn that I got there. I realized that my segue was not as obvious to others as it was to me, but my stash enhancement is primarily bulky weight yarn, which is what I got at the Dutch Oven Yarn Shop. The shop had a really wonderful selection of worsted and bulky weight and Aran weight yarns. It was a little bit thin on what my usual preference is, which is fingering weight. There was just a small little section for that, but they definitely made up for it with the just absolute variety where it came to the worsted weight and the bulky weight in particular. And so while I was kind of skimming through the bulky weight yarns, I thought, you know what would be cool is if I had a couple different yarns to add to my patchwork pullover. There we go. There is your connection for you. So I picked up a couple of very reasonably priced skeins. This one, which is this gorgeous like orange and pink almost. It's more of a red, but it kind of leans to the pink side of red. Anyway, orange, brown, and pinkish red. It is from a brand that I have never heard of before. It's called Kaya from Crystal Palace Yarns. It is 100% wool. I have absolutely no idea if this is still in production or not. I haven't done any research on it yet, but I absolutely will do before I post this video, and there's always links to everything that I talk about in the description down below. I got this because I am just absolutely positive that this will look fantastic with the other yarns that I already have for my patchwork pullover. I also got this skein of Cascade 128 tweed. So it's a bulky weight, so there's 128 yards, but it's in this gorgeous purple color with all these little flecks in it. I wasn't super sure if this one was going to fit in with my sweater. You can see what little progress I do have. I finished one of my patches. It's going to require a considerable amount of blocking to get the curl out of this sweater. But I think that this will probably look good with what colors I already have. I think that was a good choice. Even if it wasn't a good choice, I really, really love this purple color. I've been really obsessed lately with like these dusty purples and like wine colors. So yeah, I have 2 new colors to add to this pattern, and I think that'll give me just a little bit more variety from what I already have, and I think it will be really fun. I did constantly get drawn to the green colorways that they had in the bulky weight yarns, because there were some really, really beautiful greens, but I am planning on doing green as my accent color. So the side panels and all of the ribbing is going to be done in green. And I'm already having to be quite careful that this green doesn't end up on a patch that is going to be attached to the green panel, as well as this other green that I have. So I've got enough green already, and I don't want it to clash with what is going to be on my side panels. Hence, I have a purple and a rust color. Other yarn that I bought was a fingering weight. I did manage to find a fingering weight that I just fell in love with immediately, even though the selection when it came to the fingering weight was a little bit sparse. But I saw this basically as soon as I walked into the store, and I had to have it. I knew basically the moment that I saw it, even though I didn't actually pick it up to take it right away. As I was looking through the shelves, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to leave this store without this self-striping sock yarn, because I don't already have enough self-striping sock yarn, obviously. So the colors get a little bit washed out. Something in here looks almost blue, but it's not. It's white and black and tan and this beautiful wine purple color. So the color itself is Vineyard Mix, and I think that it is Andy's Socks from Plymouth Yarn Co. The shop did have a lot of this Plymouth yarn in basically all different weights, and I haven't seen it around much. I can't really say that I was looking for it, so I don't know how popular that is, but if this is what you're into, this is definitely the shop for you, because they had a ton of it. So another reason that I decided that I absolutely had to have this yarn is because it is 55% merino, 25% nylon, but it is also 20% alpaca. I have not knit with alpaca before. I do have oh no, that's not true. I have knit alpaca for mitten liners, but I do have quite a bit of it in my stash, and I ordered some more of it from KnitPicks. I am apparently developing an obsession because it is just so soft and scrummy. Oh, I love it. Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about this store. Despite the fact that I was vlogging the entire vacation, somehow it slipped my mind to get any footage of this place. So I don't have any footage, but I will describe it for you. So we pull up to this, what is clearly a bakery, and on the yarn shop sign it says to use the main entrance. So you go into the main entrance and it is a bakery. We go into the bakery and I'm sort of like not sure where the yarn shop is going to be, but you walk into the main entrance, there's the whole bakery laid out before you, and you go through a little door into where there's seating for the bakery, and then you go through that, and up a little set of stairs, you come to the yarn shop. So the yarn shop is really just 2 main rooms. There's a room where there's like a couch and table and chairs set up. It looks like it's there for knit nights. There's a wall of buttons, and then a wall full of magazines and patterns, and all over the place, just kind of taped to walls and places, are little comics. There's not too many of them, but it's just like little funny pictures, little funny things about knitting that look like they've either been printed off or clipped from a newspaper or something, and it's really cute. From that room, you go into what is the bulk of the yarn buying experience. And again, it's not huge. The organization is a little bit haphazard. The weights of yarn are organized very clearly, so you know exactly where bulky, worsted, Aran, DK, fingering weight, all of it is. And there's even a section for novelty yarns. So that organization is fine, and I never had any trouble finding anything, but it did just kind of look like yarn was just kind of put wherever there was open space. And none of it was like crammed full or anything. Like I didn't struggle getting anything down from shelves. It just looked like this yarn goes in this block, and then this other yarn goes in this block, and we need another space for this one, so we're gonna squish it together with this other yarn. It was a little bit haphazard. But it didn't matter, because the yarn selection was fantastic. They had everything from merino wool to regular wool to 100% acrylic to alpaca. There was bamboo. They had a ton of different yarn types, a vast array of prices. So there's everything there from the very thrifty yarn buyers to the very high-end buyers. They had like all of it. And like I already said, they had a ton of variety when it came to worsted, Aran, bulky, all of that. The only place they were a little bit small on stock seemed to be definitely the fingering weights. But again, I'm not complaining because the bulky weight selection was just to die for. I very nearly went home with way more bulky yarn than I would ever have used because so much of it was just so squishy and wonderful. And I'm just not accustomed to really seeing that as much in yarn shops, I don't think. At least my local yarn store, definitely the vast majority there seems to be fingering weight to DK weights and then worsted weights, but not usually a lot of bulky weight as much. So I had a ton of fun visiting that store, and it really was a very nice cherry on top to the end of my vacation. But that is what I had to talk to you guys about for stash enhancement as far as yarn goes, but I have a considerable amount to show you when it comes to cross stitch. I did it. I went to a cross-stitch store and I got, I think, everything that I should need to officially start cross-stitching. I've got my Q-snap. I've got my needle minder. I have got a lovely pattern, which, I mean, I already had this. I also have the fabric that I need. Again, I already had that, along with the needles that I should need. And I got a load of DMC. This is enough for 2 of the projects that I need to work on, actually. All of these pinks are going into a little project that is going to be a cup that says QT, but T is spelled like TEA. That is a pattern that I bought a very long time ago because, again, I've been trying to get into this for so long. So I've got these to work on that project. I've got all of these colors, some very standard white, red, brown, darker brown, white, and I even got a, I think, hand-dyed? Yes. It says hand over dyed. So this is by Weeks Dye Works in the colorway Lucky, and this was also recommended to use in the pattern, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to get this. I had just planned on using some DMC. But when we went to the cross-stitch store, and by we, I mean Taylor and I, Taylor took me to the store, which is Stitches and Things. So at Stitches and Things, they had a ton of these hand-dyed threads. So I got this one, which is definitely going to be nice for my project because I assumed that this tree was just in several different colors. Will it focus? I assumed this tree was in several different colors, but apparently it is all one green. It is just a variegated green, which is this. So I am all set to go. There's absolutely no reason that I shouldn't have at least one stitch cross-stitched into this, in this pattern before next episode. I even have, and this was a point of contention while we were at the store, but I even have these plastic bags for storing my thread once I've used some of it. So here's the debate, and I need you all to weigh in for me because the women at the cross-stitch store absolutely insisted that this is the way to go, using these plastic bags for storing your thread. However, my friend that I went with, Taylor, she insisted that the best way to do it was bobbining. If you are not in the cross-stitch community, because this is very straightforward, but bobbining is just taking like a little piece of, I have to assume plastic, it might be like card cardstock. No, that would not be sturdy enough, so it must be plastic. And once you have opened up one of these threads and taken like the pieces off of them, then you wrap what you don't use around a bobbin. I know for a fact that this is what my grandmother used to do, was she used to use these plastic bags, and I know that because I used to have a huge stash of probably DMC. So I found and received my grandmother's stash of embroidery floss. I know she used these because I very distinctly remember these bags in particular, Floss Away, this brand and everything is exactly what she used when she was embroidering. I didn't know she did embroidery or cross stitch, if I'm honest. So please let me know in the comments down below if you are a cross stitcher. Do you use plastic bags or do you use bobbins for storing your embroidery floss? Let me know. And to top it all off, once I do finally have this project cast on, probably cast on is not the right word. Once I do have this project started, I have this gorgeous project bag that was tailor-made for me. That's funny because my best friend's name is Taylor and she made this bag for me. It has this Christmas print fabric on it with all these cute little gnomes and Christmas trees and little bits of holly and stuff all around. It is right up my alley. She knows me so well. I have very recently started getting a little bit obsessed with gnomes, and it is lined with this very adorable snowflake fabric. So all of this will be going straight into this bag soon as I break out that Q-snap and actually get started. But yeah, that is everything for this week, you guys. I do have a tiny little announcement for you guys that I am going on vacation. The channel is going on vacation for a couple of weeks. We've gotten to episode 10 and I have just been feeling a little bit overwhelmed lately because there's been a lot of stuff happening in my personal life. We've had some really good news when it comes to our house. We've had some really bad news when it comes to our car. We actually, last week, just before we left for our trip, we ended up having to buy a new car because our old car just stopped working. So this is going to be the last podcast for the month of July, and then I will come back to you guys in August. I will hopefully, assuming I manage to get the editing done, have a vlog for you guys up on the 16th. So you do have one more vlog if you're into that, but otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like the video, please subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below. All of these things help save me from the very fickle YouTube algorithm. And I'll see you all again in August. Bye!